Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Chair now recognizes himself for 5 minutes. Secretary, thank you for coming. Thanks for listening to our questions. I want to pick up where we left off in July of 2022 regarding what I view as the administration's anti-market policies in regard to EVs. They are expensive. The grid is not, we're building a second grid, I guess, on top of the grid we already have, which is a huge cost, and people are paying for that in their electric bills. The batteries have limited range, and despite the subsidization, the market is literally not adopting EVs, regardless of what we want to believe or what you want to say. There's significant inflationary pressures and a glut of electric vehicles, well beyond demand. And so if we consider the current UAW strike, the cost of living has eaten away at these folks' ability to pay their grocery bill and their gas bill. So they're obviously and righteously and rightfully upset. And the administration's subsidization of the electric vehicles is killing their jobs. They know this. On the second point related to EVs, I think it's important to quote the UAW president, Shawn Fain, directly, and I quote, "Not only is the federal government not using its power to turn the tide, they're actively funding a race to the bottom with billions in public money," unquote. Now, you've recently moved to Michigan, I understand it, and I just wonder what you have to say to Michiganders who feel the federal government is using their very tax dollars to destroy their industry and their jobs.
Well, one of two things is going to happen, Representative. Either the EV revolution is going to be made in China or it's going to be made in America.
So right now, it's destroying their jobs.
Is that we are working to make sure that it's made in America.
And it's being subsidized, which is destroying their jobs. So is your position that we're going to lose all these jobs, that's what has to happen, or China's going to build all these vehicles? Is that the position?
One of the reasons we've seen manufacturing jobs grow so much in this administration compared to the manufacturing recession under the last administration is that we're investing in American manufacturing.
You're investing with our money in things that we don't want. You realize that forcing car companies to make these vehicles at a loss, about $60,000 per vehicle sold, is damaging to the UAW's jobs. In fact, I'm going to just look at Ford. I hate to call them out, but their electric vehicle unit is expected to lose $4.5 billion this year, which is up from $2.1 billion in losses last year. There's a 92-day supply of electric vehicles, which is twice that of the current average of the internal combustion or traditional car. And I would just remind everybody that electric vehicles were one of the first vehicles on the market back in the early 1900s, but they were replaced by better technology then. Now, the average new vehicle transaction price is about, I don't know, I just heard one of my colleagues, $50,000. I got $48,763, which is up $10,000 since your boss became the president, and the average used vehicle price is $26,510. Mr. Secretary, the people I work for, my bosses, can't afford what you're forcing on them. These are not market forces. This is the government funding the destruction of our own automotive industry. And I hope you know that approximately 2/3 of EV owners make over $100,000 a year. My bosses don't make that. I don't know if you can justify or how you justify forcing my constituents to pay for EVs and EV infrastructure for coastal elites and wealthy people, but somehow you do.
Well, I need to point out that wealthy people were specifically excluded from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, I just gave you the number. Do you dispute that 2/3 of EV owners are owned by people over 100,000 that make over 100,000? Do you dispute that?
Yeah, the first EVs, of course, were
Do you dispute that?
No, but that number's going down.
Those are the facts. It doesn't matter if they're going down now.
Why were you
the folks
against
that I
cutting the price of
represent
EVs?
can't afford them today, sir.
Why were you against cutting their costs?
All these factors. I'm not against cutting their costs. The market should do it. But you want the government, you want my taxpayers to pay to cut the cost, which isn't cutting the cost.
If you were of the view,
subsidizing
respectfully,
the cost.
Congressman,
Sir,
if you were of the
all
view
these
that there should be
factors
no
combined,
subsidy to propulsion
all these
vehicles,
factors
then are you against oil and
combined
gas
mean that for every
that oil
EV
and gas
sold, sir,
subsidies
at a loss, that the cost of the as my colleague on the other side, the gas-guzzling pickup truck is higher now to pay for the loss as you kill your administration, and you in particular kill the auto industry. And I'll remind you, in 2008, after the financial crisis, the federal government bailed out this industry. So while you're here today, will you commit and will you pledge to oppose any effort to bail out the auto industry after you force it into bankruptcy again? Will you do that today, sir?
Congressman, I got started in politics when
I guess the answer is
the
no. I
Indiana
yield the
factory was at risk of being shut down because an elected official in my state tried to block the administration from saving Chrysler. I got involved and stood with the UAW to save those jobs, and I'll always be with auto jobs being preserved.
I